Morning. Welcome to the session. I'll go through the agenda first. Before that, couple of housekeeping items. As Autumn said, this will be recorded and will be posted on Adobe User Group's YouTube channel. Second, you can ask questions throughout the session in the chat. I'm joined by some amazing co-hosts today, Godwin, Katie, and Jacob, who would be answering you during the session in the chat. So feel free to post questions in the chat. We will also address some of them towards the end of the session. For the agenda today, as I said, we are joined by some amazing people. So we'll introduce the co-hosts, and then we'll get into the introduction to CJA. What is CJA? Why CJA? Kind of questions. And then we'll get into what is the difference between Adobe Analytics and CJA. And then, of course, we'll end with the draw. Post that, we'll go through the three work streams or three components of implementing CJA that we are currently following at Lenovo. And then, of course, we'll end with a draw where three of you will win Adobe Swag for attending the session. Before I introduce myself, I was displaying this slide earlier. This session is organized by Carolina's AA and AEM chapter. Me and my fellow Adobe champion, Autumn Earl, who is on the call, started this group a few months ago. This is our second webinar around Adobe's suite of tools. We'll be organizing more webinars like this, inviting various Adobe product guys or inviting various practitioners of Adobe Suite. So feel free to join the group by scanning this QR code. It is a virtual group. So though it is named after Carolinas, you can join regardless of wherever you are located in the world. Well, my name is Lokesh. I lead digital and marketing analytics for Lenovo. So I'm responsible for MarTech and digital analytics implementation to drive more personalization and to improve customer experiences across Lenovo's web assets. Godwin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Good morning, good evening, everyone. So my name is Godwin. I'm a senior digital analytics architect at Lenovo. So I lead projects focusing on comprehensive digital analytics implementation. And these projects particularly focuses on enhancing the customer experience through personalization activities, increase the conversion rate, and third is the optimizing the tags, which helps on improving the page performance. Thank you.
Thank you, Godwin. Next is Katie Klein from Macy's.
Hi, I'm Katie. Thanks so much for having me here. I love talking about CJA and all things Adobe. I've been with Macy's for about 2 years, where I lead the MarTech and AdTech solutions within our marketing systems group. So my team is responsible for Adobe Target and Customer Journey Analytics, and we partner closely with the instrumentation team who manages analytics and the prior implementation of that. We've been successful in deploying CJA and utilizing it for a number of personalized journeys and other use cases over the last, I would say primarily last year. We do quite a bit of other work when it comes to AdTech and MarTech beyond, but a main focus has really been deriving value from CJA and how we're utilizing this within our broader MarTech stack. So happy to be here. Thanks.
So you have perfect person to answer any questions on CJA for the call. Thank you, Katie.
I'll try my best. Thanks, Lokesh.
Jacob?
Hi. Thanks for having me. Jacob Draper. I'm a senior product manager here at Adobe. I've been here for almost 5 years, located out of the Lehigh office, but calling right now from my basement. My focus on Adobe Analytics and CJA is on user experience and streaming media stuff, and I've worked on classifications and other things in the past, but also happy to be here and excited to be answering questions in the chat.
Thank you. We'll get to the meat of the discussion now that we finished the introductions. So as a part of analytics team, we help multiple teams at Lenovo, or any analytics team usually helps a bunch of teams. And we have a lot of customer data sources. That is because customers interact with the brand through various channels. And we want them to interact with us based on their preference. If they prefer interacting with us through mobile, we would want them to interact with us effectively through mobile. And then some customers would want to place an order through web, or some customers wants to talk to somebody, so they call in a telirep, place an order through telirep, or ask more information about the product to the telirep. Some customers, when they're purchasing big ticket items like a laptop worth of $2,000, they would want to visit a local store, see the laptop, and make a purchase in the store. So customer data exists across various data sources and various online and offline data sources. That is because we would want them to interact with us through various channels. So what does that lead to? With customer data existing across multiple sources, it is hard for us to make sense of data in a holistic way. Whatever insights that we're deriving are more siloed. So if I'm looking at the siloed data, if I'm looking at web data alone, that is centric to web data, or the insights that I'm drawing are centric to web data alone. Or if I'm analyzing teledata, those insights are centric to teledata. So the insights that we're analyzing, because the data is more siloed and exists across multiple sources, are more siloed than unified one. So we want to, it is difficult for us to identify the customer signals that matter the most, and it is difficult for us to identify the friction points that are leading for customers to switch from one channel to other, or one way of preference of interaction to other way of preference. So how do I create a unified view of data or unified view of customer journey so that I can draw insights that are not siloed, but based on a unified and combined view of data, so that I can derive actions and drive more insights? So enter CJA. So CJA enables us to create a full view of customers by combining the data from various channels. So it helps us to analyze the data not in a siloed way, like I was mentioning earlier, but in a holistic way to find answers to critical business questions and to address those friction points and to improve the customer experience. So for example, if I'm a customer that started my journey on web, I browse to some products that the brand is selling. And if I'm confused on something, and if I call in a telerep and I would place an order on telerep, CJA helps me to join the scenario where customers started their journey on web and actually continued their journey on tele and made a purchase. So CJA helps me to combine those data sources and derive actionable insights from that combined data. So now that you know what is CJA, there have been a lot of questions at Adobe Summit earlier this year or in various forums on what is the difference between Adobe Analytics and CJA. A lot of brands or a lot of customers feel like we already have Adobe Analytics. That is one BI tool that we are using that is given by Adobe. Why do I need another BI tool to drive insights? So I would like to cover some differences between Adobe Analytics and Customer Journey Analytics. The major difference, which I already called out in the earlier slide, is CJA enabling us to create one unified view of customers, and by combining data sources, that's what makes CJA more powerful than Adobe Analytics. Adobe Analytics is more web data, or all the interactions that customers are having with your web asset. That's the major difference. I'll not read through all the differences that you see here, but I will go through some of the ones that are very evident and are very appealing to me. The first one is identity itself. CJA thrives on people-based ID. So that is what we use to combine the data sets. So while Adobe Analytics is more cookie-based ID, where you use a cookie or the session for that browsing ID, CJA uses a people-based ID, whether it can be an email in hashed form or a phone number of customer in hashed form, whatever customer ID that you have, that is more people-based. So CJA uses that identifier instead of cookie ID. Another good thing with CJA is if customer is unknown until that point where he is a cookie ID and then he suddenly makes himself known by giving a people-based ID, we can stitch that back and tie that back together in Customer Journey Analytics so that you can see how the transition took place or what is he interacting with when he was an unknown customer. And the next one is variable limitations. There have been various discussions, there have been various blogs that are written on how to use make best use of the limited set of variables that are available in Adobe Analytics. All that is gone. With CJA. It is more XTM-based, schema-based data processing. So we do not have any variable limitations on CJA. There is more flexibility with regards to variable persistence on CJA. Another good thing is you can have the event or variable persist across offline event if you want to see that breakdown of online and offline in customers. And then we can upload offline data to CJA. At Lenovo, we have uploaded multiple orders that are missing from Adobe Analytics, or multiple fiascos that happened due to IT deployments where we had to upload some offline data in manually through transaction IDs. But that is all aggregated. With CJA, it is not only aggregated, but you can link it because it is people-based ID. All the data is tied with person-based ID. You can aggregate as well as you can have an event-level offline data that is tied to people-based ID. And then audience sharing, of course, in AA, it is seamless with Adobe Target, Adobe Audience Manager, etc. Same goes with CJA, but you can integrate more offline activation channels where you can pump the audience into the activation channels for that seamless integration. Last but not least that I want to go over is the intelligent captions or GenAI capabilities. So I was working with some of Jacob's colleagues where I saw the GenAI capabilities. So when you have a free-form table that is created on CJA, CJA can give you intelligent captions. Of course, it can give you time series forecasting, AI assistant relating to that, but it can also describe the free-form data that you have there, where you can say, it will describe you what is the average of my data, what are the highlights of the table that I have, lowlights of the table, how is current weeks or current data that I'm displaying here, pans out with regards to the averages that I see, etc. So, which are not there in Adobe Analytics. I don't think we have GenAI capabilities on Adobe Analytics yet. And then, of course, the BA integration is even more seamless in CJA. So we saw what is CJA, the value of CJA, and why we would go for CJA to create that unified customer profile. And then we saw what is the difference between Adobe Analytics and Customer Journey Analytics. Let me give you a brief on how do you successfully implement CJA. So unfortunately, purchasing CJA and logging into CJA will not magically show me the unified profile of customer. So if our organization already has a CJA, I would like to walk you through what it takes to derive value, to implement and derive value from CJA. So we at Lenovo designed a 3-component model to successfully implement and drive CJA. So the 3 components, first one being data ingestion, where you effectively prepare and ingest and integrate the data for CJA. Second being how do you drive more enablement of CJA, where various teams use CJA and derive various insights from CJA or insights from the unified customer view. Last but not least is, now that you have derived insights, how do I activate and how do I make those insights more actionable? The last work stream being how do I impact my baseline or top line metrics for ROI on my CJA investment. So I'll go through, I'll give you a broad stroke on each of these work streams. Coming to data ingestion, the first work stream, I feel like this is the most critical yet most challenging of all 3 work streams that you saw there. This, as I said, involves effectively preparing, integrating data for various analysis, integrating data for various joins, and so on. So for data ingestion, first we identify various sources that we want to integrate into CJA. The view that you saw in the earlier slide, where you create one customer profile, you would want to think of what all sources you want to integrate into CJA first. Then you identify and find that people-based identifier that is common across all these sources, because that is what is our key that combines all these data sources. So once we identify and we recognize a people-based ID that is common across all these data sources, we design schema for incoming data source. So we design schema for each data source. we design scalable data pipelines. Once we do that, we also decide on frequency with which we want the data to be ingested. Depends on my scenarios and what I want to use the data for. So I decide on frequency. That would be a part of my ETL pipeline design. And also for each data source, we decide on methodologies that we would want to use for ingestion. For example, if I'm integrating Adobe Analytics data, it is more straightforward, or there are various ways we can do. I can either use ADC, which is Adobe Data Connector, or if my Adobe Analytics data is coming in through Web SDK, I can use that if I want it more real time. So I decide on methodologies that I would want to use, that I would want to integrate the data with. And then another critical piece of this work stream is ensuring data quality. Here is where we ensure data quality for ingestion into CJA. For example, it is more simpler in case of Adobe Analytics, because when I ingest and integrate Adobe Analytics, I can do a one-on-one comparison of, I create a dashboard on Adobe Analytics, I create a dashboard on Customer Journey Analytics, and see if the data is matching one-on-one. If there are differences, I try to address that in a more straightforward way, because it's all web data on AA and web data on CJA. But the complication starts in when you start integrating and ingesting offline data. For example, post ingestion of Adobe Analytics or web data, if I start to ingest my tele data, I would want to validate that. I mean, usually the ETL validations are like, okay, I ingested 1 million records into this. Am I also seeing 1 million records there? So apart from those surface level QA or data quality checks, I would also want to check the data connectedness, where we create personas for this two data sources. Where I was giving an example earlier, where when I integrate and combine both web and tele data, I want to think about some customer personas that would be common across these data sources. For example, if I start my journey on web and call in a tele rep, I would be a good persona for me to test the data quality on. So once I ingest my tele data, I would want to see if there is join or if there are personas where customers started their journey on web and continued their journey on tele. I also want to see what are the volumes of customers that they did that. So for each integration, for each data source that I integrate, I would check the data quality by creating various personas, various ingestion scenarios, etc., to ensure it is not garbage in, garbage out. So that is about data ingestion. As I said earlier, this is the most critical yet most challenging piece of all three work streams that we faced, because this is my foundation to the whole CJA success plan. Okay, now we've successfully integrated the data ingestion, ensured the data quality, the designed reliable ETL pipelines. What do we do? Next one is we want people to use CJA. So we want to drive more adoption. We want to drive more adoption not just with internal data teams, but also with business teams, where there are a lot of people that are using Adobe Analytics or various forms of BI. We want them to use Customer Journey Analytics and derive insights based on the unified view of customer. So this involves training analysts and non-analysts on business side to use CJA. How do they log in? How do they create dashboards? A good thing is if they are already a user of Adobe Analytics, the UI is exactly the similar. I think they use the same UI code base. So the UI of CJA is exactly the same as Adobe Analytics. So there is not a huge learning curve that they have to go through in order to do the drag and drops and analyze stuff on CJA. But I would want them to be aware of the intricacies of combined data. So we created comprehensive Adobe Analytics versus CJA documentations. We would we run multiple roundtables, dedicated training sessions, roundtables where people can come in, ask any questions, or roundtables where people can come in and give us a customer persona that is a result of integrated customer data view that can be created on CJA, where we create the scenarios on live basis. So we run multiple trainings where we ensure people are adopting and using CJA to draw insights, to draw valuable insights that are that are a result of unified customer view. That is the second work stream, to drive widespread adoption and to maximize the efficiency and use CJA to draw valuable insights. Now, last but not least is we ingested the data, we have the unified profile, we are having various teams drawing insights from CJA. They are using CJA, logging into CJA, deriving various insights. Now, what do I do with those insights? How do I make those insights more actionable? So that is the third work stream, the most important work stream to ensure we are making the insights more actionable, which is activation and ROI. So what we at Lenovo did is we met various teams, we gathered various use cases that are a result of unified profile, that the use cases that would address the friction points of customers. Why we would want to see if customers are switching from web to tele or mobile to web, we would want to see what is the friction that they are facing that is resulting in a switch. If which pages are actually driving more telecall volumes, if carts page is driving more telecall volumes or checkouts page is driving more telecall volumes, we want to analyze that stuff and ensure that we are removing that friction point for customers through various activation use cases. So similarly, we kind of gathered bunch of use cases. What we did is we categorized those use cases into crawl, walk, run scenarios, more like my 3-month, 6-month, and 12-month plan that we categorized them into to create the roadmap for activation of use cases to drive personalization at scale. What we also did is we categorized them or classified them into various on-site and off-site personalization use cases. For my example, where we found out a friction point that various customers are adding products to cart and then calling in a telerep to place an order. So in that example, if I'm a customer who added a product to cart, I already know what I'm going to purchase. I already know the price of the product. I would call in a telerep for two reasons. One, I prefer to place an order through a telerep, which is fine. As a brand, I'm not worried about that. I would want customers to place an order whichever they want. Or I'm facing some friction where I'm unable to move beyond cart, or it is giving me some error. So in the second scenario, we would want to address that through on-site personalization. So we build that segment on CJA through our second work stream, where we analyze and create actionable insights, and we pump that insight into our on-site personalization engine. In our case, we use Adobe Target. So we pump those audience into Adobe Target, and we try to run various tests so that the friction point for customers that are calling in telerep is removed, and they make the remaining 2 or 3 clicks that would result in an order confirmation, or that would result in an order. So those are some of the examples of on-site. We would, if customer abandons the cart, or if this in the same scenario where me as a customer called in telerep but haven't placed an order, we would want to activate some offsite personalization, or we would want to send relevant information to them via email, where we do a bunch of offsite personalization engines. So overall, the third work stream is about how do I ensure I'm giving I'm interacting with customers in a way that they want to interact with me, and also ensuring that I'm creating a seamless personalized experience for customers through use of the CJA, where I integrated all the customer data into one platform. So that is the third work stream. So to summarize, we went over what is CJA, we went over the main differences between Adobe Analytics and CJA, and then the 3-component model which we are successfully implementing CJA at Lenovo, which is the first one being data ingestion, second one is driving adoption, last but not least being the activation and deriving ROI from CJA. So those are the 3 components that we have that we are integrating or implementing CJA with. I know a lot of questions, I'm sure, have been answered through chat. Is there anything that is interesting that one of you want to call out and answer orally, or?
I have a couple of use cases that might be helpful, and great presentation. Thanks, Lokesh. Covered so many things that we've talked through organizationally on the Macy's side. There's a few questions in there, and I know Jacob's been responding. I can't quite type that fast to be able to do it in the chat and think about talking about it, so I figured I'd opt for talking.
You do that, I type. It's great.
Sounds good.
I'm barely keeping up.
No, you're doing great. So some questions about AEP, some questions about CJA and identity stitching, and I think it might be helpful for me to just give one quick kind of rundown of how we've best understood it, because there's a lot of complexity. So obviously everything that Lokesh was talking about when it comes to the implementation, how to design it, thinking about that foundation that you're building, and then being able to activate has been crucial and at the foundation of our implementation as well. The way that we've explained it to our business stakeholders in terms of where we can derive value and the importance of some of these things is that AEP kind of operates like any identity resolution solution that there is, with some nuances and benefits, obviously. But whenever you're onboarding first-party data to any system, obviously checking things like governance and guardrails that you have against utilizing the data or exposing the data in a way that you're not supposed to is crucial to that. So different companies obviously would have different ways of doing that with legal or information security. So obviously going through whatever assessment process needs to happen is crucial to that. But really the benefit that we see is the ability to understand kind of the core of who the customer is, because when you're looking at it across devices, you have probably quite a bit of duplication, right? And the benefit of being able to do something at a customer level is to really say, we know who this person is, and so we can speak to them most effectively through all channels. And so when you kind of look at the value that you can derive from that, and you look at the guardrails in conjunction with that, you can really assign like specific, really incremental value to what you'd be doing based off of that. So what I've found to be a good way to approach that is to really assign a use case to it and say, here's where we're facing a potential challenge right now. And this is where we think we're going to be able to see a lift or better insights or faster time to insight using this. And then that paired along with some of the requirements around how the data is processed and used has been a good conversation for us to have with leadership to be able to get that common understanding of where PII plays a role. There's also a lot of anonymization, making pseudonymous IDs and things like that before it goes anywhere. So really it's contained within your own instance. So just some food for thought for there. When it comes to how you're thinking about CJA and the data that exists there, this is probably related to kind of the analytics versus CJA. Do you need both? Could you just have one? What does that mean for graph-based versus field-based? Is that CJA has its own data lake, right? And so when Lokesh is talking about the schemas and designing that, that kind of exists in one place. The way that we look at it, especially because we have Journey Optimizer and we also have Target that plays a role, and so we have really the full kind of ecosystem there, is when you're thinking about profiles, the profiles are dynamic. And so you're really thinking about data kind of in two different places. The data that exists within AEP and that's used for AJO kind of circulates there. Because you can use graph-based stitching and also AEP and AJO does that, you have the ability to look at multiple identities and be able to bring those things together. One specific example of where we are very excited to have graph-based stitching is we have an additional identifier for customers that's generated when people are not logged in, but they add something to cart prior to soft login, prior to full login. And so that additional identifier is not easily able to be stitched. We have a custom solution that we implemented because we did this very early, but we're looking forward to using graph-based stitching because we can bring that additional ID in there and reconcile everything together in the context of CJA. So obviously there are kind of unique situations when it comes to how companies handle different things, whether you have an app included, whether you have different types of logins, but that's where really thinking about it at that profile or at the customer level and thinking about how that can kind of be flexible throughout the customer journey versus thinking about, are we doing kind of point in time measurement, and how do we need to think about how a customer's identification plays into that. So hopefully that gives a little bit of context from our retail use cases there, but happy to dig into that if anybody has any other questions.
Yeah, you answered most questions that I see here on graph-based stitching, etc. That covered it all. Thank you for that, Katie.
Thanks.
Jacob or anyone, do you have anything else to add?
No, just catching up with stuff here in the chat. There's been a lot of
Me
questions
too.
kind of around identity and stuff that I think is helpful and cool about some of the differences between CGA and analytics, because that's kind of a big one. So that seems to be a common theme, but you guys have done great in covering that.
Yeah, there have been a lot of questions on, particularly on identity graph, and that's a very powerful feature of CJA or AEP in general. I'm sure there is a lot of documentation on that, so probably I'll get that from you, Jacob, and I'll share it with the group on overall identity graph, ID stitching, etc.
Yep.
All right. If there are no other questions, we will move to the next section. I'm having a hard time to catch up on where do I see the questions. So, but yeah, we'll go to the next.
Yeah, it's okay. We have kind of the chat, which funnily enough is easier for a reply to be specific. In the Q&A section, I am trying to relate the name to the person. So we are covering both. I'm just kind of hopping back and forth between the two.
Okay, all right. While Jacob does that, if your question is not answered, don't worry. We will send you an email and get back to you on that one. Okay, we are reaching end of section, which is spin the wheel. There is a virtual wheel that Chase or Julie are spinning in the background. I will know who would have won, the three people that would have won. So Jacob or Chase. Right, Chase already pinged me. So the three people that won the giveaway, the first one is Gopi Rajendran. Congratulations, Gopi. Second one that won is Sini Downing. Congratulations. Last is this. I know this person, Avil D'Souza. So three people won the giveaway from Adobe. So Chase will reach out to you to get your details on how you will receive the giveaways. So thank you for attending, everyone, and congratulations to three people that won the giveaway. And thank you, Katie, Jacob, Godwin, for co-hosting. Talk to you guys again.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.